player and the drummer together. There's harmony.
Is it it's 11:53. I thought there were Sailor Rules.
It's close enough. I don't know. You're recording again. You are a shitbag.
I've really got to start working on my poker face just a little bit better. Last time, actually, this is kind of where it started about a year ago. I kind of just hit record, and I think it was 20 minutes before we actually got our entrance in because Tyler went on this magnificent talk. We'll go ahead and jump out of the way and get that done real quick. Back with the Appalachian Podcast. I'm your host, Billy Riddle. With me is my lock, stocked, and two smoking barrels co-host.
Dear Lord, here we go.
Simon Winch. Simon, good to see you again. We're back in the sanctuary for the first time in about a year for a show.
Yeah, and it's just great to be here. I love this place. Great vibe. Awesome. Doesn't get any better.
Yep, we're not in the Timcast IRL studios, but as always, a sponsor. Go check them boys out every night for their show at 9 o'clock. They're doing a lot of cool stuff in the Appalachian region. I'm trying to get them to come down here and put some focus on this region too, because this is a really vibrant part of the state that I think people should appreciate more. And that's kind of what we're going to on our show today. And obviously our guys back home that take care of us at Rocky Mount Smokehouse and Rocky Mount Burger Company. I wanted to go there last night. They had to come home to Franklin County. Sorry we didn't hang out for that. We really wanted to be there, but it was raining on and off, and we had this today, and it was just a lot. So we do got a show with Crawford and Power coming up here in the very near future. We're thinking about doing on that Friday. So we wanted to do that at the Burger Company upstairs in the Bell Room, have a good time with that, but have people come by. But I ended up working, getting home late, freaking West Virginia.
Life gets in the way.
Yeah, so look for that Crawford and Power show to come out here in the next few weeks too. And so thank you, Brian, at the Burger Company for offering that up. We almost made it happen. And I wanted to go eat there last night, couldn't make it happen. So for those guys, and of course, Mike Cohen and You Are the Power, and our buddy Chip Slate at Being Libertarian Media, who we're now kind of in a connection with. And I'm bringing him over here tonight for his first visit to 5 Points Music Sanctuary, where for this show we're being joined once again by the director, Tyler Godsey and his buddy Marshall Hicks, who we've heard a lot about over the years. I'm finally excited to get on the show because he's like the brains of some of these operations. So, gentlemen, welcome back.
Hey, thank you for having us back. I'm really glad to be here. But thank you guys for coming back. It's
always a pleasure.
Another holiday season, I feel like. Last time you got there, coming in with that Crawford and Power show, I think I was going on about 3 hours of sleep. And I woke up and it was like the first thing coming in here, and I was like, I don't know how much energy I'm going to have, but I remember listening back on it, and we had a great time. We had a great show.
Fantastic show.
Yeah.
You know, this is awesome. This is only the second time I've had to come into this room where someone else mic'd me up instead of micing up everyone else.
Right?
I didn't have to set nothing up. Thanks
go.
for doing the tech work, guys.
And he had to wait 7 years just to get to the first one, and that was last night. Was the first time Marshall came in here, and he didn't touch the mic. Someone else was setting it up for him.
Yeah, I got to come play some drums last night.
Right on.
My band was right over here on the stage.
How'd it go?
I think it went really well. We were stoked. We've been wanting to play here, but we've been like earning it and doing our thing and playing a lot of other venues and stuff. But this has been on my bucket list probably since before Tyler was here as 5 Points Sanctuary. It was the sanctuary, kind of a shared space, event space. And I got to do a couple of shows in here just as like, bring a PA, and there was nothing in here. I mean, this was nothing like this. Wide open. Did you ever come here when it was just a sanctuary? No. So, I mean, imagine all the life out of this room. And that's what it was.
Just straight
it's
white.
Just straight white.
Flat white.
So
Flat white.
Kind of like Simon.
What we had to do is
He's
bring
British
the
white.
vibe in. We had to there was nothing in there. So we brung the vibe in and put on some pretty cool shows and had to hang up lights, had to put up the speakers, and then we were pulling it out. It was kind of like just a little bit. So when Tyler got here, it still was a little bare.
Oh God.
I've got pictures maybe of Welcome to Huna or something, like an early band from a while ago. And it was just nothing like it is today. It's vibrant. It's alive.
The first color in the room.
Just a blast up there.
First color in the room was just the black on the back of the arch.
Okay.
Remember when we came in and I had, the only money I had was to just tear down the wall on the mezzanine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bought all this furniture from Thelma's Chicken and Waffles. It all came from a Thelma's Chicken and Waffle
Even the
shop.
furniture's got a vibe.
And that was the only color in the room because the floors were super clean, like and like super refinished, and there was no contrast anyway. And everything was white. And it was 48 hours before the first show, and I tore the wall down. And Matt Leonard comes in, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing, dude?" And I was like, "I'm trying to put this sound paneling because it's gonna sound like crap." And he's like, "Dude, we have a show in 48 hours, and I got a guy pulling 25 feet, high worth of drywall and just chucking it down on the stage where Matt trying to set up his drum to practice." I said, "I got this." But the only color in the room that we had was the black, fabric
arch,
on the back of the arch. Before that, it was just a white drywall.
How were the acoustics in its raw state?
He'd tell you better than I.
Pretty unruly. I mean, there was nothing to absorb it. So if you didn't have some people in here, it was echoey, boomy.
Right.
It was pretty, tough room. That's what they call it. You go in there, you can get it enjoyable, you can get it tasteful, but it's a tough battle to get there. And the room has gotten better and better and better over the years as Tyler brings in better PA, better microphones, and then getting sound baffles in the right areas.
Getting a lot of people in the room.
So
That's the trick.
It's gone from a tough room to a more manageable room, and you can shape it to what you need for that genre of band you're working with, or even event. Maybe nothing music related, just some kind of dinner thing. It's not like crazy echoey trying to talk when you got 10 tables in here or whatever of people. It doesn't overpower you anymore.
So now you've got the acoustics set where you're happy, and as the space fills up with.
Well, this is a good question to ask. You probably have more of an understanding for what it was before this and than anyone else, and a lot of people they don't even comprehend any of it.
Right.
So it's great and it's much better. But really, is it even close to where you think, like, if with continued refinement, like how much more work has to be done to make this play? I mean,
let's talk about like the very, very perfect scenario. It would be a building or stage or structure built from the ground up with sound in mind.
Okay.
Like if you did that, you could do anything you want. You could
blank canvas,
solid rooms, solid floors, solid everything with soft absorbent passageways to grab it, and shape it, and leave some liveliness in there, because you don't want completely dead. There's like isolated chambers. What do they call? They're like super quiet. People don't even like it.
And they can go in for like 30 seconds.
You don't want that necessarily with music.
Those vocal booms are just like that.
Kind of like that. Yeah. For entertainment, I don't think you want it. Like, you got to have a little bit of liveliness, just because that's air. That's like how it breathes.
I think a high ceiling really helps with that.
You'd think so, but that's one of the things that people tell me is the problem.
So this is a big open room, and it does allow sound to travel enough space, but it is still how long is this room? How long is the room from about the stage to this back wall?
46 feet.
That's
about 50 feet.
46 feet.
So at 50 feet, we're gonna get reflections of anything we're doing. So that's like certain, that's ideal number one that's gonna hurt us, but we can't change that. It's the building.
When I think too, though, like I look at, you talk about going into isolation chambers, and the energy of whatever sounds are literally being absorbed and sucked in, and energy that is just taken away from the room. And you go back to what the power of sound is. It is about how there's a movement of energy, the spread, or the vibrational concept of it. It's like the art. When you look at the art in here, and most people always ask about the art, and it's actually a design concept. It's totally inadvertent on its initial phase, but the design of the way the art goes, it's that these panels came together, and it creates a reciprocal point from the stage where you see the sound come out. It connects into a harmonic element in the corner, and passed along the mezzanine, it hits the other side of the room, which is actually the same exact art that you have on the other side, except it's mirrored.
Yeah.
And it's these 3 panels pushed together, and it makes one big image. So you stretch that out, and the energy flowed back to the stage. Now the 2 side curtains represent the 7 chakras with a symbol of the moon and the sun at the very top. And it is the balance of harmony that manifests when all of these chakras align. And the stage at the top, with the artwork up top, is the explosion of energy and light that manifests from that creative outburst that happens on the stage. And when it's so funny that I was talking about this the other day. So the disco ball in here, I got from Craigslist, and it was.
I
was
the one, I think, or I posted it up or something like that. Yeah.
It was originally in the Iroquois.
Iroquois, that's right.
And I think it moved to the Elephant Walk. And I know this guy really well. I just can't remember his name right now. But he came in and he's like, "Dude, I'd love for this thing to be here." And he started telling me the backstory. He's like,
"It's not Kevin, is it? Kevin Jenkins or something like that?"
No, but and I will kick myself when I do find it.
Did y'all ever go to the Iroquois? You know what the Iroquois is?
I haven't.
Ghost to Hollywood, I think, was the same club.
Kings,
yeah, that was way back.
Yeah.
You said Elephant Walk. Is that's
the old Holiday Inn across?
I know that one.
Yeah,
I remember that one.
Different place.
Okay, no, I don't.
So Iroquois, I was a little too young for the Iroquois, but I went to Factory 324, which was what its last incarnation was before it stopped being a music venue. And when they closed down, I actually bought the subwoofers.
Oh, yeah?
And this is before I'm even like running sound, barely have a real mixing board or anything. I was just like, I'm going to buy these subwoofers from this guy. Like, I was playing in bands and doing stuff, but I wasn't running sound or even thinking of that as a career or business plan or anything like that, or even a hobby at that point. And I bought them, and I still have them to this day. They've been painted. Oh, I got them, I think, $150, $200. I think one of them had a bad speaker in it, and like I've replaced them, painted them, and like fixed them up over the years, and they're still kicking strong. I used them at the Rocky Mount 150th anniversary just recently. They don't go out too much, but I'll do some multi-stage events, and those things are still impressive.
They kick it out.
And when I work with local musicians, we'll either talk about it or they'll go, "These things look familiar," and it always like brings a smile to some of the old school guys. They're like, "Oh, I've played through these before." So that I love that you have a piece of it too.
Oh man, when he told me it was from the air, I was like, "You're not leaving here, right?" I mean, it's like not going anywhere. And I think about that, like, you know, like what this region has been doing since I was a kid, and its own little microcosms and its own little pockets of whatever was culturally relevant at that time. I mean, for me at the Iroquois, it was like Agents of Good Roots times, and that was when Agents of Good Roots was the first band I drove away from Roanoke to go see, and I drove all the way up to Richmond. What was not Tracks? What was the Alley Cats? And at Foggy Bottom in Richmond. But I saw my first Agents of Good Roots and drank my first Red Stripe at Agents of Good Roots at the Iroquois. And I looked like I was 12. I mean, I looked like I was 12 when I was 18. So imagine what I looked like when I was 14 and 15. I looked like I was like 8 and they're drinking Red Stripe. And Roanoke had got over the time. And these things have come and gone. And they're these legendary little like stories. And it's not just the places. But like the Iroquois, it's not just the places like Tudor's Biscuits or the Home Place, or these are these legends of what makes Roanoke really, and in the region around us, special to the people that live here, because they hold on to this little thing and this little story that it becomes a parable, and those that connect on those old stories are like, and that makes the bond of those two people, whether they knew each other really well beforehand. A much stronger thing. And as I think about where we are,
it's not even just a shared memory, it's like a shared effort,
a shared understanding,
like music venues and bands and all that stuff. We're all like, it's pushing, it's not easy, and like when it takes that community of people just knowing they got to do that, This is what I'm here to
build
do.
something.
Yeah.
And like you think about the early festivals that you would work, like the first year or two of like a Rooster Walk or a Floyd Fest or the Red Wing Roots, like the first couple of years, it is a romantic point of chaos that most people have no clue about how it manifested, because those first few years it is. And like what you see in this area is that the people that built each one of these created these own unique worlds that have their own unique juxtaposition for who they are, what they stand for, the people they sort of represent. But the common thread is that the people that the degrees of separation behind the scenes from the local musicians, from the local production organizers, those people are consistently at each one of these things at its manifested point. And it's the same thing at 5 Points. It was the same thing at Floyd Fest, Rooster Walk. It's the same thing at almost every single starting venue that you see. It is because there's a common thread, a network of people in this region that have developed creative and technical capacity that is transferred on. And the technical capacity that provided the subwoofers that you talked about transfers on, and it becomes a romantic tale that gives you a little something like of charm about like coming here. The charm of a disco ball that travels through multiple different venues and still comes back, and it finds its place here naturally. I mean, like it's a Craigslist post and it found its way here. That's the idea of gravity and things like it just follows where it's supposed to go. And Marshall Hicks has been, he's one of many, but he is his own unique special soul. And it's not just because of his, like what he does, but he and I talk about, it's the pride that we take as individuals in what we do. And that's what separates everybody. I see amazing people in this region doing things. And the first step is they take so much pride in who they are and what they do, not in an ignorant sense or an arrogant sense. It just allows them to do epic things and keep their head down. And they don't often, these are the men in black. They're all the production guys and full on black that don't want the attention. They don't want the glory, but they know intrinsically the role they play is one of the most vital and most beautiful roles, and they just don't want to always come out with blasting and sequence jackets and colors. They want to just...
Tyler's one of the better ones to work for, because it can be a thankless job.
Well,
being the behind the scenes.
Well,
guy,
that's what Simon and I were talking about coming down the road. I said, and like I said to you all up in the green room, I said, we've done so many shows with musicians, and we've had promoters and different kinds on, and I said, I don't think people can appreciate how, because to us these days it seems so routine. It's like, oh, we just show up at 5 Points and there's a show. We just show up at Rooster Walk and it's a show. We just show up at Floyd. But there is so much energy and creativity and so much passion and effort behind the scenes. Like, the musicians go up on stage, not to discount what they do, but that's probably aside from the show they're putting on, what they're doing is probably the least involved, because if you all don't do your job with the lights and with the sound and it's hitting the people the right way, then they're going to walk away and they're not going to remember the show. They're going to remember, man, that just sounded bad.
I think it's more of a yin yang though. I mean, we need them. They need us. Like, I can't just set up a sound system and people be entertained.
Well, no, absolutely.
Need the artists, and then the artists can't just go up there and kind of, wing it. If they want the best experience for their audience to get, you need that second ear. You need those other eyes. You need the people that have a perspective from the opposite side of you to make that yin yang happen. And that's when you get that perfect 50-50, almost like the technician guys are performing with the band. When you get that, that's when you're in the audience and you're just blown away. And you don't even know why, though, because honestly, I want my job to be so good that you do not notice. I don't want you to think about me. I don't want you to think about the sound guy or the lighting guy. I want you to be so involved, either mentally, emotionally, physically dancing, that you don't even think about any of
You're
that.
just the man.
You're just in there, and then it's the yin and yang between. Like then the third part is the audience. You know, we want to read them as we go. Especially as a sound guy, I get to look at back of everyone's head all night, and I can read the back of someone's head pretty damn good right now. I've been doing it for a while, and it makes me. Not only am I making movements and adjustments with the band, I'm doing it for the room and the people in there too. So it's like the energy I feel on a night that's going really, really well is almost just as good as getting to perform in front of body, or just like, you know, having a good old time. Like, I think even though it is a bunch of work and stuff.
You hit it on the head there with energy, and that energy's not just coming from the performers and the artists, but it's coming back from the crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's super cool.
Exactly. And then everybody pushes a little harder then, you know?
So one of the things I love about Marshall is, so we've, like last year, we added our headphones to go to sound packs, and so the headphones that we do these accessibility programs, they feed in PA system wirelessly, and it's just like silent disco headphones.
Have y'all worn them before?
And I got to wear them at Hill in Appalachia this year, and it blew my freaking mind.
And that was awesome. We're gonna be back there with them next year, going back and providing these same services at Hill in Appalachia next year.
So describe to Simon though. Do you know what we're talking about though?
No, I
so
understand.
It's like
I know the jacket.
It's like a backpack subwoofer, and then they added actual direct feed to headphones of the soundboard,
which is not people. And I'm quick to remind people that the value, and you really do. Marshall does this, and he always wants to. It's like Tyler, the headphones. People think, oh, it's just what the soundboard's going in, and it's not. That's oversimplifying what it is. It is a production guy like Marshall has 2 rooms to mix. He is mixing for what it sounds like in this room. And that's what's coming out of the PA. Now, you got a bunch of stuff coming straight into the mixer, but what's going into the headphones that these people are wearing is a completely different thing. It's you're tweaking something for a room that's non-existent.
Yeah.
And Marshall, every time we do this, only a handful of people need these headphones during a show. But Marshall, out of the other thousands of people that are there, mixes his own mix just for the headphones themselves that sound completely the way he wants it to be through that headphone mix, just like he's mixing the sound for this room to make it sound just the way he wants it to sound.
And I guess to explain that a little bit better,
it's always virtual. That's like a virtual space.
Kind of. It's kind of like if we were doing this right here. We got our 4 microphones and our mixer, and we've got our headphones, right? Well, let's say I needed to project that outside on a actual live loudspeaker kind of thing. That's the concept. Is I'm doing the same thing, but what we're hearing in our headphones is very comfortable and to our liking, but the speaker might need to be like, Simon needs to be louder in the speaker.
Yeah, you got to drive the speakers.
We want Simon's the star, so I need him a little louder in the speaker, and then we're all tucked in there, not unheard, but we're tucked in at a different thing. Or I guess in 5 points or a musical aspect, think about a snare drum or a loud guitar amp. In the room itself, it's already, without the use of a PA, it's already making a good amount of volume depending on how they're playing it. So I only need to supplement the room enough to get where I need to get in the room. But that means in the headphones,
different thing completely.
It's going to be where it needs to be, almost to sound like you're listening to a CD or a live show, or even a multi-track recording from some soundscape, some movie.
And what this is to me, and the thing that means the most to me about this is that these individuals that work on our events and work on it, because they do it all over. It's not just for 5 points, but the ones that come here, like Marshall and many others, they are fundamentally thinking about somebody else's experience all the time. just as the light guy is trying to avoid blinding the audience, there's still points in time where they got to think about it, because it's like someone's going to be standing in front of one beam somewhere, and someone's going to have to take the short end of a blinder spot. But the light guy understands how to manipulate that so it doesn't create a point of chaos. The value of people like Marshall, it's not just that they made it sound good. It's not just that they made it look good. It's that they represent from starting point to finish point everything that we here try to do. And they set a tone when a band comes in the room, the way that they breathe, the way that the shoulders are snapped back, the way they learn to respond in a point of unforeseen chaos where a monitor went out or an amp blew and you have no clue, and the audience member, what's going on, they respond in this way that creates peace. It creates comfort. And for the people that are coming on the stage, because you talked about the rapport that had to happen where the band and the production team are dancing with each other. And most people come in here and they're working with our team. They're not part of their own crew. So you got to dance with these. And it's because they develop this trust from the first moment they meet, that they see Marshall and he's like, this dude takes pride in what he does. I can see he's doing a little thing. And it's reinforced when you hear Marshall's like, I did a mix on the microphones, on the headphones over there for 2 people that may or may not even use it tonight. And he does it every show. Or I made sure that I wrapped those cables. I went through and tested it is a little thing that no one even thought about. It is the smile and the way you breathe when that band gets off the bus 2 hours late and it's raining in a load in, and you've got to figure out whether or not you're going to have a show or not. And the way that Marshall has over the years has taken a breath in those points of chaos, he is, and the people that all work for us, it is infectious. And Marshall does that. The other production staff does that. We just had another good friend of ours that does a lot of help with us, Austin, just pop his head in the back. He does that. We all feed off that energy. And when you
I think we feed off the chaos sometimes too.
Exactly. The yin and the yang.
It's not always great.
But these actions are always selfless. It's the most unselfish thing that you can do.
Well,
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, mixing music is, if you're doing a really good job, you need to be pretty selfless about it, other than the pride of your
be
mix.
prideful, but don't like it.
But yeah, you're getting, people are telling you, I want more of this monitor. I need it louder. This is too bassy. They're just demanding, and they could be nice about it or mean about it. It doesn't matter. It's people have different moods, different times, different places. But yeah, it's like you get asked to do this all day long, and then you clean up their mess at the end of the night.
Yeah, and so
but I love it. I mean, I it's almost just so second nature now. If I told you, I don't know, 10 plus years ago, let's say 15 years ago, if I was going to be doing sound or being a technician for this stuff, I'd probably say no. Like, I was playing music, dabbling in that, and not really having any other direction than liking music and writing some stuff and all that stuff. And you buy a PA because you got to rehearse. We're in a little garage or whatever, and you need 2 speakers on a stick and a couple microphones, something to turn it up. And then you take that and go do your first show. And it just snowballs from there. Like, you ran your own sound, okay, cool. Hey, your buddy wants to do a show. Can you come bring your stuff now?
And then you guys like, I want you to record. I need a place to practice. So you go and buy
it never seemed like a job doing that setup, though. It was what was needed.
So you have a studio still right now, Marshall, don't you?
It was a shared studio. We just call it the space between a couple of bands and a couple of musicians.
How many bands share this practice space?
It depends on what you classify as like a working band. There's a lot of like recording projects in there. Like there's a lot of creatives that might not be out on the stages every week. They're more of a behind the scenes themselves and just recording other people. But yeah, it's about
musicians.
It's about, it's like, kind of, or like maybe musical producers, like where they can engage with you and help you record,
right?
Whether they play with you or not, kind of thing. But it's a cool spot. I've actually traveled from a couple different buildings with the same group of people, and that group of people's mutated over the years as well. But it's probably about 3 bands in there, plus like a couple projects that are studio projects and people that come by just to kind of hang and be creative.
Well, if it's a place to go practice, then I guarantee you, field musician Joshua Grice doesn't go over there to hang out. Cause,
poor old Josh.
So
sorry, if I don't
but
get,
it's a rehearsal / recording studio. I mean, it's got it's nothing like what we have in 5 Points here, but we've got a PA already hung and installed. Turn on and plug in a couple microphones, and there's usually a drum kit there. So a lot of the work's already been done, so we can come in and do our thing. And we also have a pretty moderately sized recording setup, and that's pretty plug and play as well. So we've worked really hard and gone through so many like weirder buildings and transitions.
You've been like broken in on a couple times.
Yeah. I mean, it that always happens. It just seems like musicians. People love to scam a musician. There's something about it. We're out there.
Padlock.
We're out there already sticking.
No padlock big enough for a musician.
Yeah,
really
we're out there sticking our neck out, and we're just playing our little happy songs. And someone's like, "Man, they got some nice gear. I want that gear."
Uh-huh.
They don't do that to too many other people. Maybe like construction workers and their tools and stuff.
So of what you know, how many other little places like the space does Roanoke have where you have these small communities of like bands and whatever genre or whatever the classification of musicians? How many other little pockets of these spaces do you think lie around that are used by multiple bands?
You know, there's probably more than I know, is what I'd like to think. But over the years, they've kind of come and gone. I think they're moments in time a little bit, like several music. It's kind of like when you see a band that's together for a couple of years and they break up, and then there's some of those guys in a different band. It's like little pockets that it happens. There's been other spaces that were very, very similar, and I would go over there and rehearse with other people or jam with other people or record. Adam Baber used to have like a little studio that was a very similar kind of vibe that going on. And I think that's been in two different buildings kind of as well. I remember there was kind of like a hardcore like house show kind of little clique, and I think they had like a hang, like a place to a couple of different bands were rehearsing.
The old one above the old press down on Luck Avenue, I remember.
Yeah.
Now, so when you think about the band that you played with there, did you find that the club, like, I mean, it's like being at Sopranos, Satriale's, and you start hanging out with different musicians. Do you find that the collection of musicians led you to new bands and new creative things, or are you like, this is my band and these guys are just helping pay the rent, and those guys are just helping pay the rent? Or do you feel like it was a collaborative platform where you guys were just blowing?
That's the beauty of the collaborative part. It's like I've always told people this is where David Bowie walks in on Queen. Like it's that scenario. There's a band rehearsing, and then some badass musician walks in. I was like, oh, I needed to grab my case or whatever, some cables, but y'all are doing something. Let me hop in, and like magic. It's a place where,
and who would say no?
Somebody could pop in and just be like, oh, let's this is really cool. Let me vibe with you a little bit. And it's also fun, even if it's just like this band's wrapping up rehearsal and then myself or somebody's coming in and doing a little recording session. There's this little, walk by period. Hey, what are you doing? What are you working on? And
because the Queen Bowie thing happened in Switzerland, if I'm not
I think that sounds
it
right.
was
Yeah,
Switzerland.
yeah. And that was like they didn't plan that.
No, not planned at all.
Bowie was just there when Queen was there.
Yeah.
Walked down the hallway and then fucking cut a single.
I wonder which one like looked first. You know, like if you were Queen or you were David Bowie,
Yeah, I don't
would
know.
you turn to notice Queen or would Queen notice David Bowie first? And like just like that's David Bowie, or did they turn and look at Queen first? Like who was like who caught the eye
Interesting.
first?
Yeah.
Right? It's amazing.
What a
that-
concept.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I was reading about the old Jimi
big heavy
Hendrix
hitters.
and like when he was in London with like Eric Clapton and like and I was reading like the birthday I guess for Jimmy I guess a couple of days ago, right, or something like that.
I think so.
But they were talking about how like the collection of in London and England at the time, these were clubs that there's only like 40 people in, but you had like Eric Clapton and you have Jimi Hendrix, and these people were just like playing for 45 people, yet everyone in the country's talking about it, you know. And they would come, they're like this kid from the U.S. that's like the next maven of like guitarists. It was a buzz, but only 45 people, and you had Mick Jagger, and you had like they were just going through. It's just a room of the rock stars that you think of as like unseeable, touchable, knowable today because they're just the legendary status. And then the 3 points in the early years, and it was just 45 of them in a club.
And they're all dingy little clubs in probably North London.
Yeah, it's
You know?
wild to think about all this because think back to with the Yardbirds. I mean, they had 3 different guitarists. I think it was, of course, Jimmy Page, Beck, and who's the other one? Was it
George Harrison, right?
No, I want to say, was it Clapton?
No,
The Yardbirds was in Clapton.
It was.
yeah.
So it was Clapton, Jimmy Page, and Beck were the 3 guitarists through that. I mean, can you,
Not too
and,
shabby,
and
right?
nobody even knows who the Yardbirds are, really. I mean, if you ask, the Yardbirds are like the very, very beginning of what the Stones
top of the
sounded like
family
in the
tree,
very
yeah.
beginning. Yeah, what the Beatles may have. I'm not a big Beatle fan as a Stone, but what's down on the boardwalk. I mean, that's the.
There you go. There's that rusty anchor chain being drawn over sheet metal. Thank you, Billy.
But I the charm and the romanticism of how creativity is not necessarily recognized or measured in greatness because it's hit the masses and it just like it went big bang. Creativity happened in small little places like Marshall's The Space, and we don't know what the hell is going to happen because only 45 people were in that room at that moment. But 40 years later, you could be looking and say, there's a story that went from there to the Stones. And then it is not likely to happen like that today just because of a whole scenario of like economic and like, structural concepts. But the little things that happen in those rooms, the relationships that manifest when you see somebody that has a creative compunction that jives on your same level, when you see an artist that takes immense amount of pride in what they do, that's when they like get it bounces back and forth. It becomes a reciprocal point of
The beauty of creativity
and
it's totally random.
And it only has to be a couple people.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be the mass. That's the beautiful thing about art itself. I have a lot of our artists. We got Ralph Eaton. He's an absurdist, is what he calls it, right? He loves the idea of making art that is slightly uncomfortable, if nothing more from the giggles, He's like, if
Got
I
him.
made that person feel slightly weird for a split second, it's
did
our
its
highest
job.
honor.
Yeah.
But and so that's one of the reasons I loved it because. And he does these down at the Art Rat Studios. He brings in these musicians and artists that like are totally on the scale of like things that really is so progressive in terms of how it does mixed media art and music and like international explorations of sound. And he throws these events and only the dozen or two people that come there and throw a couple dollars in a box. Doesn't charge. He's like I just like to do weird things. And if an artist calls him from New York and they say, yeah, it is some really amazingly
there's some good times had there. I mean, and it's
just a small little space where he's not doing it. You don't.
it's one of these places like you have fun going to, And then you're like, I'm gonna bring someone here and freak them out a little bit.
Yeah, and
Like,
they got freaked out.
You're like, hey, I got freaked out here. I'm bringing you with me now, and I want you to feel what I just felt. That's kind of one of those places, but you're never like out of your element. You have control of everything, but it's like, but you get to feel definitely different and weird, or like, oh, this is a very absurd thing going on, and now he's got this
Don't
absurd
do mushrooms.
absurd, yeah. Oh, you know,
I mean, look,
I'm sure people
everybody's on their own algorithm, but to the point of like of the chaos of that, and the value too is that those individuals that are in that room, they represent a small minority of the people that sometimes feel even comfortable enough telling somebody that they like this kind of weird thing, right? Because it's outside of the mainstream. And it doesn't mean that all of it's like supposed to jive with anybody. It just means that they found something that made them feel really, it may not even been doing it to feel good, because that's such a generic term. They found something that made them feel a sense of perspective that they needed in life. And it could have been that they were doing some insane like performance art with like, you know, fake blood and like a horn and candles and wax. And you're like, I don't know where this is going. I don't know where the fire marshal, you know, it's like, you're like, I need to like just sit back and rethink what this guy's doing on a performance level. But then you talk to him at the end of the night and you're like, you're nuts. And he's not.
Let it unfold.
He's not nuts at all. I mean, he's crazy, but he's legitimately structured in his thoughts, in his head. As an artist, he takes so much pride in the fact that he's doing something so different and so unique that you had no choice but to stop and turn and say, what the hell is that?
He has some like, it'd be like something about being sincere and serious about being weird.
Yes.
It's like a sincere
It's almost
weirdness.
conflicted, isn't it?
Kind of. A bit. I mean, but I think we're all kind of like that in this industry.
Embrace the weird.
Yeah.
It keeps you young, Simon.
Oh, absolutely. Look at me.
I love the way you, I don't know whether it's great the way you looked at me right there, but I was like,
yeah, these episodes are always so much fun for me because I don't know if y'all have had a chance to listen to a lot of our shows, but when you go back and tune through them, you'll realize that, you know, Simon has been drinking in a bar with Phil Collins, or he's worked with Paul McCartney for a few weeks on a yacht, or happened to be on a plane with Jimmy Buffett, a two-seater flying out of, I mean,
I've been a lucky guy.
these shows, right? I mean, like, because it encapsulates like how universal music is, really, you know what I mean? And for Simon, between his, you know, CIA experience and mixing in with all of his music, I mean, he's if nothing else, learned an incredible amount about how much it takes and about the passion behind it. So these make these shows so much better. I really enjoy these conversations.
It's about embracing life. You know, just embrace
I'm out of ice in my drink right now.
Well, feel free to fill up. We don't we don't have to stop, or we can stop.
No,
It's not we typically get up and go grab beers out of the fridge back at the house studio right in the middle of the
You
show.
hear the beers popping, you know, the ice chinking in the glass. There's nothing professional about the Appalachian podcast when it comes
this
to
Well,
is
you know,
very
you-
professional. This is good. This is good. I've been on a couple podcasts, and you guys got it together.
Well, I mean, even for us, you know, I hate to compare it. I hate to compare it to music. To really, there's a meme out there. I don't know if you ever saw it, but it's this little corgi dog, I think they're called, and he's sitting over in a corner, and he's a musician with a guitar. He's just tiny and sad. They got all this equipment behind him, saying, "I hope somebody likes this." And then on the other side, it's got all these big, massive douchebag corgis, and it's podcast bros, and he's like, and they're like, "Hey, bro, I was at the store today, and somebody was taking so long." I'm like, "No way, bro." I mean, they're just, you know, musicians but. So the correlations, but when it comes to like trying to create something, you know, I just started this like in a little room in my house. I never thought I'd be able to come sit in a place like this. And it wasn't only just coming over here and sitting, it was also coming over here and helping tell the story. Now I got to be a part of that. And now I come here and I'm making my own stories.
Yeah.
Like my wife and I've come here when she was pregnant with our kids and had some of our last good hoorahs. You know, we've come over here for dinners and got to listen to some stories of how many different people and children, like the therapy here, has helped. We've got to come and rock some of my good friends at a coffee. I mean, and we're going to be building more memories tonight and at the end of this and for years to come. So I think, you know, there should be so much more emphasis
Yeah.
on going out there and being creative yourself. You know, for me, it was a podcast. For you all, it's music. For
It will
Tyler,
take you somewhere.
it's serenading everybody
Church.
with his words.
Give me a church, baby. Give me a church, and I'll get spiritual.
But everybody should be encouraged. Like you have no idea what you can come up with if you just put a little bit of effort. Like it's mind-boggling what is out there that we don't grasp or try. And
it's funny how just doing the bare minimum of what you like to kind of do, and like you guys do a podcast or music or sound, it will still just keep taking you to the next thing as long as you're just even doing the bare minimum of what it takes to do it. If you just keep doing it, you end up traveling going different places. It's like, I think if I had to say one thing that drove me into getting more into music is to travel, just to be outside of the norm. I mean, it doesn't mean I don't love coming home and being here, but it's like, I love the taste of going this way, going that way, experiencing a new place, eating a new food, trying to interact with a different crowd, you know?
I think that is an incredibly important point about like where we are today. Like all these amazing things you see around us. It's everything from greenways to restaurants to breweries to music and bands. None of these ideas manifested in just this little thing, and we all had these epiphanies and everything. Our program, what we do as an organization, it is not novel. What we're doing as a community, it is largely through these collaborative and shared experiences that shape new perspectives about how we think, how we can spend our time. And so you have people that live in DC, and you have people that go to colleges all over. They go to Colorado, and they work in California, and they've gone to all over the place, and they take back these ideas. Like when I lived in Vermont, I always wanted to take to Vermont biscuits and sweet tea. Because I was like, these guys know nothing about biscuits and sweet tea. And I would take this idea and move it to Vermont, and I was going to start my first food truck business. I was a young wook, about 22 years old. And Louis Tudor he's like, you're going to be in Vermont. I'll help you learn how to make biscuits. You're not going to bother me. And I held him to that. That's what they told me to teach me to make them. And I could go to Vermont and start this biscuit company and sell sweet tea. Up north, nobody puts sugar and cooks it with the sweet tea. We got packets. And it's always just mind-numbingly frustrating to go up north and nobody knows how to make sweet tea. So I thought nothing more simple. It wasn't a novel idea, but it was an idea that spread back, and these things bleed over. The programs that we have here are not novel ideas. In many ways they are, but they are not. There's little pockets of perspective and inspiration from somewhere else, from traveling, from working with somebody that you might not normally work with, from taking a few moments to listen to a band you might not normally have heard, from taking a few moments to imagine a new way of envisioning our world. Those little things like, the food you eat, to the music you listen to the beer you drink, to the greenways you ride along, to the mountains you can now hike. All of these things are manifestations of a collaborative group of ideas that people come back to a place they have pride in and where it means something to them. And the people that take pride in what they do, they go and they start a small old music company that grows because they invest in themselves, and they start a podcast, and it grows because they invest in themselves and they take pride in it. It goes back to the people that started a bike shop. It goes back to the people that started a 5 Points Music Sanctuary or a small brewery guild. They took pride in what they do, and now they're a big lick brewery. And it's all because they found enough people that could stimulate a level of thought and a accountability to each other. I've worked with Marshall, among other people, because it's no question of accountability ever. There is a sense of shared responsibility to each other, and I don't ever worry. And it's not just Marshall. There are dozens of people that we have in this region I work with, but he embodies the whole idea that you bring somebody on to help you in something, and they're out of sight, out of mind. But right there when you need them, as like Batman and Robin running your little podcast, right?
I hope you didn't point to him saying
nearly
Batman.
yeah, like you can lean on each other, but you know that he takes pride in what he does. He knows you do the same thing, but you're both going to kind of let your lives like consume some degree of selfish desires along the way, but you hold each other accountable. You build each other up. I see people like Marshall invest in not just what they do. I mean, every time they do a show and they make some money, they go and they buy more gear, or they reinvest in their company, or they reinvest in their band. It's because they're building something. When we stop taking that idea and we just hold on to what we have because we're afraid to lose it, it becomes, over time, it gets stuck in a rut. The momentum of progress is lost. And there's reasons why those little studios that you talk about, they pop up and they disappear. It's because the rut of that little outburst of creativity that manifested 3 to 4 years of a successful little band or group of people, it changed because 3, 4 years later, half the people were getting married. 2 of them were on addiction challenges.
Anything.
2 of them had kids, and 3 to 4 years of life happened. Perspective changed. Priorities changed. The one thing that stays common amongst the people that have been nearest and dear to me are that they still take pride in who they are, and they still look to keep things weird enough to remind themselves that what they think they know is not all they should be exposed to. And it's a really hard thing to do that. You listen to music you don't really like. Can you imagine being a sound engineer and having to work a random, bar that says, I'm going to put up whatever music it is, and you might hate it. Yet you go out there and you do a job, and it could be, there is a neural network that we are breaking into by forcing ourselves to indulge in
I've got to nerd out on some of the weirdest stuff sometimes.
Yeah, and that's a responsibility.
I
But
did a polka band for like an Oktoberfest
oh
one year.
God,
Now you're speaking Simon's language.
man.
And had to, I've never mixed polka,
How does this go?
Okay, tuba, he's the bass player now. I got my accordion, he's like the crazy keyboard player, and then everybody kind of just fills in and sings, and you're just like, okay, I'm a rock and roll guy. How do I mix this that makes sense to me?
Now,
And,
that's very interesting on the way that you've just broken down
right, yeah.
the sound engineer to, if you enjoy a certain genre of music, you would
You got to think about it just like music, I guess. It's
Right.
it's like not even, break the genre, forget the genre part. Like music kind of has a way it works.
So your passion is in the production of sound quality for that music. So that's,
I don't go home listening to polka,
I was just going to
but
say,
I made them sound pretty good that day.
what's your radio station in the car? We'll find
I
out.
don't know. Yeah.
they care. They care. Like, honestly, it starts with whether or not they're good guys on the stage. Were they easy to work with? And that's did they feel entitled? Did they feel like, I'm a king polka band, dog. You should have your shit together if you're the sound engineer for me. And you're like, dude, you're a king polka band. And so,
this particular band, after the gig, I realized that the accordion player is like he's like a Nashville guy. Like they call him when they want to do like a Zydeco song or whatever in Nashville.
Louisiana.
He's like one of the premier accordion guys. And he's like, oh yeah, October's my best month, man. I'm doing Oktoberfest and German events and all that all month long. But he's like, but not like rest of the year I'm doing like country music that wants
Doing the
accordion,
the Acadian Cajun stuff. Off
yes,
you go.
yeah.
and as weird as it might be to be an accordion, like international accordion star, right?
Right.
That's your gig. And it's not a thing I would choose, but I am fascinated by the mindset of an individual that is completely content within that idea. Like, I get it. You don't like the accordion. And but I jam this thing out and it makes me feel really good. And whether I understand it, whether or not I like it, whether or not I can even start to embrace this could be really cool if I just gave it time. None of that actually matters. Because for me, I just saw somebody within a world of a bunch of people that have no idea really what they want to do or where they want to go or how they want to be. At least one person was content in their own little, their own playing field. And you give people that chance to feel that way, it starts to create more harmony.
Well,
And
I think the passion that people have about how they spend their life, if you can do that and earn a living, and then you're sharing your passion, you're on the right path. I mean, I pity people that sacrifice their working career in jobs that they absolutely fucking despise. That to me is misery.
You're putting yourself in your own prison.
Well, and there comes the individualism behind humanity. I mean, I think you've got to have a passion. You've got to follow it because you'll have such a better existence.
it's a pressure to say that, though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really like, it's
Because I
unfair.
feel fortunate.
It's very unfair
that
because a lot of people,
it's
it's
just
so
happened.
easy to say something like, but it's very unfair to put that burden
Mhm.
on somebody that hasn't been exposed. There hadn't been time. There hadn't been perspective presented to them. They may not have traveled to be inspired by something they hadn't seen already. They may not have taken enough time to get weird and uncomfortable.
That might be it.
But it is, I see a lot of people that are beautiful humans, amazing souls, but they will tell you quite bluntly that they struggle. Say it's such a cliche. And it's something that it's like, it's everybody gets either happy for the holidays or you're depressed. And there are a lot of people out there that have a passion that they've identified and they're comfortable with it. And there's billions of people out there that never even, they are 50 years old and they have no clue what they would even think about. And it's and it's not because they're not creative. It's not because they're not smart. It's not because they haven't been, that they don't deserve it. It is not always easy to understand. So when you hear somebody that I'm an accordion superstar, or you see somebody that says, I like to pluck chicken feathers and play the bow, fiddle with them, or like something weird, or you see somebody that says, I want to be like an emo burlesque, performer, or I want to do magic tricks on the street and put nails through my tongues, or I want to write classical music. Like, everybody just finds something. It's really hard unless you liberate them with the risk of judgment about what they do and why they do it. It is such a thing. It keeps people from trying things.
I think that judgment from other people is really inhibitive.
But the irony is that they want to be judged. That's why they're performing.
Right.
And they want to be judged, but the judgment itself, because of the way our minds are limited in the scope and our capacity to put ourselves out there, we're so comfortable sometimes with what we know that the fear of the unknown makes it like, what's that worth to me? Do I really need to go and pay $20 to something I have no idea about? It's not worth anything to me. It's a risk to put myself out there. And once you help people free themselves from whatever the loss is of that risk of putting themselves out there, is the moment that you capture David Bowie and Queen walking into a studio at some point.
Yeah. And I think you hit that on the head there. Where am I going with this? Carry on amongst yourselves. It'll come back to me. I just had a brain fart.
If we hit like the hour mark on this, and I don't know how much
Risk.
longer,
That's what I was going to say.
the hour mark.
We're close.
We shouldn't. I would like to encourage people not to view risk as a negative thing, because that's the inflection, right? Risk is there's something you can lose. No. Taking risk is there's something you can gain.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that glass half full, psychology behind that. And I think risk, you should be wanting to take risk. I'd encourage people to take risk
I think
because the rewards.
you at least make movement by taking risk. I mean, if you're not,
And don't stagnate, even if you do it wrong.
Mhm.
Go and do it another way.
It's a movement.
Do it another
I didn't
way.
say it was like it can take you
Yeah.
exactly where you wanted to go. And that's like almost my whole story. It's like not exactly where I wanted to go, but hey, I'm kind of where I wanted to be anyway.
And sometimes the journey is going to change, but
Yeah.
in the end,
Yeah.
for me, when I was 20 years old, I was like, I'd like at some point in time have a wife and a couple of kids. And, I signed up in the Army and I was a truck driver. And they were like, I said, I think back, I should have done something different. Why didn't I do anything different? Why didn't I go into computers or something? I'm never going to be a truck driver. Well, guess what? Now I'm a truck driver.
Right,
but instead of looking at that as a negative, I think of it, well, okay, it was something my grandpa did and he provided for his family. But more important for me is I get to come out, 3 or 4 days a week. 'Cause I do part-time so I can work on the show, but 3 or 4 different days a week. Where I am part-time, I don't have a route. So they throw me wherever. Mm-hmm. So each and every day, one day I might be in Harrisonburg, one day I might be in Southwest Virginia in coal country, one day I might be in Danville. But what I'm getting to do every single day that I go to work is interact with different people from different areas, find out what's bugging them, find out what they're interested in, what's going on in this part of Virginia, what's going on in this. Yeah. And I take that back and I take that feedback and it helps make my shows better. Mm-hmm. It helps me meet people and introduce me to things and places. And I've actually had people I've met out there at my job that I've, reached out to about shows and we've collaborated because, getting out and doing, I could look at it as a negative, like, dang on, but I look at it as a positive. And if you can find something positive in what you do, that'll help you be creative in the other things you do that surround yourself, and it'll all culminate, as Tyler's alluded to.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be an earth-shattering thing, It may just be running a herb garden outside of your kitchen window. You do that successfully, think of the joy you get from that.
Whatever it is. Now, here's the thing, though. We're talking about how when I first started, or when Marshall probably first started, and it's just you, the implications of whatever risk, whoever the impact of that risk that you're taking to take on a project, it's just you. Right? Things go awry. It's just on you. As you start to grow and succeed, you invest and people gravitate towards what you're doing because it is a success. They want to be a part of it. The responsibilities that come with not screwing the whole thing up become more and more intense. And so now, instead of Tyler just putting on a bunch of shows, and if it fails, it's okay. I go home and weep in my pillow and try and plead, for some, fortune of love for my wife. At the end of the day, that was that was my biggest risk, like right there. Now I come in and I have to readjust and reframe how much risk is reasonable, considering there are dozens of people that are impacted by that decision. Mm-hmm. And as organizations grow, and it's been something for us that we've had to think about as our board has developed, how we manage and mitigate and balance the risk versus the need and the demand for stability has been something that it's a tug and pull, because the bigger we get, the irony is the less risk I'm still the risky guy. I still like to put myself out there and be weird and embrace that absurd effort will inspire me to a thought that I wouldn't have come up with otherwise, because I would have been zoned in on the standard rhythm of balance and risk and like just being more conservative. As Marshall grows and what he does, his responsibility to each other, to the people that work for him, or as we grow, our responsibility to Marshall and I. These things dictate how weird we can get sometimes. And you think about the Grateful Dead. When they had a little hiatus in the 80s, there was this, in multiple bands, Fish too, like there was a point in time when the band itself said, holy shit, we have like 1,000 employees. And we used to be some touring hippie band, and now we have 1,000 employees that depend on us for Christmas, for health, for like everything in life. And the pressure all of a sudden burned down on the creative light that allowed them the opportunity to be where they were. And as the pressure of that light manifested from the dark forces of life, the pain, the time, it becomes a burden for those in the creative realm, because what made them successful was the ability and the idea of putting themselves out there without fear, and they were rewarded. But they were also taught now they have to think about, I can't just throw myself out there because there's so many other people that I got to worry about.
So it's a team. It's like we're all paddling in the same boat. It's so
and
you don't want to be the the guy holding everyone's paddle back, or you don't want to be dragging somebody.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the Dead, though. They were like, we don't know what to do with it. They had to take a break.
Kind of like setting some pace,
Well, and I can see some of those old school record deals that still, go out there where you've got to produce your 2 albums a year. You've got to produce so many live shows. You've got to do this.
And it's to keep the wheel rolling.
And that actually slows that wheel of creativity down. And it's inevitable. So you're actually part of a self-fulfilling prophecy about wanting to succeed, but success is actually breeding failure. And it's kind of scary.
It is scary.
And that's where the risk and reward mentality has to win.
It's not, this is an uncommon thing. It's a cyclical nature of the creative process for a lot of people.
Pick it throughout life. You can apply this to anyone.
Yeah. If you think about it, if you were a painter, you'd never have to worry about it because you just took risk your entire life, and the only time you got rich was after you died. All famous painters, they're like, nobody paid attention to any of their work until after they died. So they never had to deal with like this sense of like, oh, I've succeeded as an artist.
Are you saying they're lucky?
They're like, I have been recognized by my peers. And
I've got so many cathedral ceilings I need to paint.
Yeah. And then like 100 years later, like, dude, that is pretty sweet, man. Who did that? And they're in the textbooks of history because of like a new perspective that somebody else was exposed to. And then they channel that perspective into a new creative thought of collaboration through a different art period that went from a modernism to a cubism, like all the concepts of how an Iroquois disco ball that represents as close to like a CBGB like Roanoke might have had in the 80s of like just kind of a grungy ass damn dive, but just epic things. It navigates through the creative glue that makes this region what it is. The grit and the grind of Marshall holding on to these subwoofers from a random point of like a spontaneous purchase.
It was a good deal.
Yeah.
It's a great deal.
It's a great deal because today he has a story that no one else has. When he pulls those subs out and someone recognizes them, he is stroked to the soul. He's like, I knew there was a reason why I held on to him. And you can give him a paycheck and he'd be happy, but that stroke of the soul of knowing that someone else recognized that
sweet moment
will get more dividends than anything you can do with that paycheck, because it validates that what you started with and where you've arrived is worthy of holding on to. It is worthy of celebrating. It's worthy of sharing. And it shows that you have a connection to things and that people didn't even realize you already had. And it creates these points of engagement, that a degree of separation that makes us realize whether I'm in one side of town or the other, whether I'm one skin color versus the other, whether I'm one religious point of thought versus the other. It makes us realize that there are these little things that we all can come back to and hold on to. You might not be a polka guy, but he loves sound. You might not be good. Yeah. And you come back, and what are the common things that we hold on to? And that's how we build. That's one of the reasons why I've always felt that Southwest Virginia is so special. It's because we do have people that aren't constantly screaming on either end of the spectrum, but most of us are able to find these little points of consistent perspective that we bring together. And if nothing else manifests outside of those two things, it's okay. Because you and I both like weird. I don't like the art, but I love that weird. And I'll get down on that any day.
Something about Roanoke that I've kind of always said is this valley is an incubator. Like, we have this special thing. Like, when the first time I got to go actually like on a tour, like 3 weeks on the road with a band playing in different cities all the way to West Coast and back, the first thing I recognize is, whoa, Roanoke, watching this band that I was working with, my friends, we have a sound. Even though within Roanoke there's a million sounds, there's a Roanoke sound in contrast to where you're at. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it's there. and it's just so interesting. I think in a slightly different alternate universe, this could have been like your Seattle, your grunge breakout scene. This could have been like your what's the valley in California where all the soft rockers. Roanoke could have been one of those, just
The soft porn rockers.
the soft rockers.
What, San Fernando?
But yeah, we could
It's interesting.
I think
No.
alternate universe. This could have been just all it
But
needed
it
was
still
a slight.
can.
It still can, but I feel like how entertainment and music and art is these days. It's not. There's no highlight cities other than what's already kind of established. I mean, I think Roanoke actually gets more claim to fame all the time. I've got a friend that played music with me, and she moved out to LA several years ago, and she was just in town for Thanksgiving, and we always catch up. And she says there are more people than you think, like over in California, that go, "Oh yeah, I went through Roanoke once. Oh, I heard I had a friend there. I had a band play through there," and they know. And it's like, what? Why are they talking about Roanoke over there in LA or something like that? But it's
People from Roanoke represent. I mean, there's some people,
Yeah.
like friends that I grew up with, that don't live in Roanoke. Wherever they've gone in this
but
country, they represent Roanoke. And
the
ways
valley
really
being that incubator is why, like, some people truly outgrow it, and then they go off and do these amazing things. And I've seen it, and I live it too. I think I'm more established here. I don't want to take my thing away. I'm happy making it grow here, but I've seen so many cool things and sounds that come out of this area that can't be recreated. They can only be shared. You know what I mean?
When you talk about Southwest Virginia as a whole, and Roanoke, I guess, is kind of the heart of Southwest
Well,
Virginia.
I say the incubator because the valley, it always makes me
it's
think
gotta
about
be-
that.
it's a
But yeah,
bigger
this
area.
whole area, because I've
Well, you go back to Ralph
up
Stanley, the beginning of
yeah.
the bluegrass down in
Man.
coal country. I mean, right now, just in this place alone, last year you had 49 Winchester come through the doors. They're potentially the next big thing. Crawford and Power, they're going out and they're performing in front of massive audiences, and they come back here. And we've talked to them about this. They love coming here. They love it because despite going out to these big places and playing for these big crowds, this is their home crowd and the energy. And tonight you're going to have Colby coming in here, say what you want to. Caleb Fleury.
Larry.
When you want to talk about embracing the weird, Caleb playing the spoons and all the people he has been connected to over the years. And he told me on the phone, months back, he's like, man, get Colby on the show as quick as you can. He's got the potential to be like the next Tyler Childers. And he's only like 19 or 20 years old. The kid is an unbelievable musician. He's going to be here shortly, hopefully
Yep.
jumping on the
Yep.
show. But
with his 1957 Gibson, and there's no other sound like it. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful guitar.
I mean, if you
No,
really
he-
sit and think about it.
as a young gun coming up, he has really captured a particular sound that is created here that you can't recreate
That's
anywhere
right.
else. And it's first time I saw him, it was hilarious. I was doing this little festival out in Axton, and it was like a little 2-stage thing, like a big main stage, and then they had like a little porch. And I go over there. It's Colby Helms. I think he had maybe just a fiddle player at that time. He didn't have like multiple musician thing. And I'm like, all right, who's this kid? And I roll up. He's got his big old baggy overalls on, sunglasses, aviator sunglasses, and a PBR hat. And I'm like,
And none of the
I was like,
colours
kid,
match.
kid, have you ever drank a PBR? Like, but so I get him mic'd up and all that stuff, and then he kicks in, and I'm just like, man, this guy's from a time capsule. Like somebody captured him back in the day and brought him back to life
He's
right
a
now.
student. He's a student of the history of
Yes,
bluegrass. And
yes.
He's legit.
he will sit down and
You
tell
can't
you the
recreate
history
that
of a
anywhere
song.
else around
And
the
it's like,
world.
this is a Doc Watson song written on this day, and it was talking about his grandmother, and there's
The real deal comes out of this area. It's
And
just
because they
crazy. Not even just bluegrass and old timey country stuff.
they're exposed to an authentic expression of that creativity because it's historical here, but they also come from the fact that they've exposed themselves to the world out there. So like when the jamgrass thing took off, and it went in it's like exploratory ways. I get down on it all the same, but there are traditionalists that say, well, bluegrass is not what I remember it. And
Do you think the old timey bluegrass string band stuff being so predominant here in the past engages people just to try guitar around in this area more than other places.
Well, you have Wayne Henderson that's like one of the greatest guitar Lutherans.
But do you think that I know people pick up instruments and music all over the world, but do you think there's a bigger influence here because of that? Here's a guitar.
I think it's the easier
this was a
thing
very string band
thing to play in isolation. So we have a rural market. It's an easier, like you can't just sit there and just sit on a drum kit and be in Galax and just sit on your porch and play drums, to a sense of the vibe. I mean, a banjo, string instruments in general, but like, I don't know that I think about how you have an anchor of the traditional construct of the music itself that has developed a renewed appreciation for the traditional sounds of like a Doc Watson or like Bill Monroe, like vocalist, that the noise of a green sky bluegrass or Billy Strings itself, as traditional as it is for some people, they now like hear someone like Colby who's 21 years old and he's singing like something they heard in the 40s, and they missed it because there'd been a big gap. They're like, oh man, I love that. And it shows that the next generation hadn't forgotten about that. It shows there's an appreciation for that. It shows that it's that they want to take the energy that transpired before them and apply it in a new way for themselves that will be unique to themselves. It's how you as an artist define like what makes you who you are. It's something that evolves, but they hold on to that traditional value and then they put their own weird on it. Like Billy Strings is a perfect example. He started as a punk rocker and like he went right back into bluegrass and even had his own weird, put his own weird.
And for a sound guy, the bluegrass stuff is always tough. And it's so funny because when the music was conceptualized, they didn't care about speakers or microphones and anything. And it's kind of daunting to me every time I do like a very traditional bluegrass or string kind of band, being like, if y'all were just quiet, if the audience was just quiet, we could all listen to this. But that's not the case. We're all having a great rowdy time, and you have to electrify something that is so raw.
It's an evolution of the music.
Control it. It's tough. And it's so like, it's just one of those, like when you see big old guitar amps, it's like, it just makes sense. Oh yeah, we're going to have a big old speaker for the microphone or whatever. But you bring out all these little beautiful wooden boxes with strings on them, and you're like, all right, I got to make this sound like a rock show.
And the energy of
have the energy of a rock show.
I can see the toughness of converting an acoustic set with amplification, because you're going to want to.
It's kind of
bring
like
certain things out that in an acoustic set.
It's kind of oxymoron-ish, but we want to do it, And it's way more common these days, and I feel like the technology between instruments and sound systems has come a long way to combat that, like to actually improve the workflow of it, but it's still kind of
well, you sound engineers have come a long way too. Y'all have come around to the idea of being bluegrass sound engineers.
Yeah.
When you talk about this area too, and I know you talk about the incubator, and that's a phenomenal way of putting it, and even how it kind of does spread out around the region. You talked earlier about the Grateful Dead. Jerry Garcia really got his beginnings in bluegrass. That's where when you listen to the Jerry Garcia band, there's a whole lot of bluegrass.
That's his influence.
More than there is some in the Dead if you listen to some of their old shows, but Jerry Garcia band, when he got out there, you're talking some old classics, and so it's not just people from this area, it is this area's reach going across so many different, but that all goes back to as well about how jazz incorporates, so much of music these days, and it's just, it's such a phenomenal.
I've got to ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Are you a valve amp guy?
Valve amp? Like tubes?
Mm-hmm.
I do love a tube amp. I understand the upkeep of them, but I actually do not own any.
Really?
But I like working with them. I like recording them. So I've got a plethora of instruments, and I did have a long period of being a guitar player in a couple of bands. But I've kind of come full circle. I'm a drummer now these days, so I don't buy a whole lot of guitar equipment. I do have some guitar equipment for my own creative and recording purposes. I actually own a lot of guitars, but if you pick up each guitar, they're all strung differently, tuned differently, have a different job. So I don't have guitars to be like the guy up there to have 2 or 3 guitars in case I break a string or something. My guitars are there for when I want to create some music, or I'm working with somebody and I'm like, hey, it would be great. Take this guitar that's
use a Telecaster, not a Les Paul.
But no, tube amps are awesome. Where I work, Stage Sound, we have a technician there that does the repairs, and this guy has taught me so much about the architect of tube amps versus solid state, and I have a good concept of that, even though it is tip of the iceberg stuff. I mean, he is smart. Like, I can hold on for a conversation for a while, and then I'm like, all right, right there, lost you.
Purple smoke.
Yeah. But man, it's amazing because he'll have those things laid out like out of the chassis, so you can see it light up and all the electronics, and he'll show me the signal flow. And there is something beautiful about that type of amplifier and that design, and that's why it's still around today. I've got the only piece of tube equipment I own is a Crosley AM radio, and it works. Yeah.
How old is that?
You can still, I don't know. My aunt gave it to me years and years and years ago, and me and that same technician.
Do you have to wind it up?
You turn it on and it takes about 10, 15 seconds. You're just sitting there looking at it. And then it slowly creeps up and on whatever AM station you got going on.
Well, Marshall, I know you got to get out of here because you got another place to be at today. Yep. And but I mean, this is one of those deals where I wish we could sit around for another 2 hours and just shoot the breeze. There's so many other questions I'd want to have and to go into. But that's a beautiful part about this thing is it never ended, and we'll always, as long as Tyler will have us over here, I think we'll keep coming over here.
It's exciting to have you in 5 Points, and like I said earlier, is like I don't get the chance to walk in here and get mic'd up myself, so it's always a pleasure working with guys like you and talking about some stuff.
He hasn't seen us drunk yet, but maybe for the Crawford and Power
maybe next
show
time,
comes
right?
back over. Yeah, as far as that's concerned,
He
Tyler,
falls off chairs.
Well, Crawford and Power is the 23rd of December, correct?
Yeah, we have an amazing lineup coming up here between now and the end of the year. And, I don't want to take too much time, but, last year when we got on here, we were in the middle of a campaign to raise $100,000 to put a down payment on the building. We've got a deal in place for that. We worked last year successfully. We put down $100,000 at the beginning of last year towards the building. And with this year, we've had our most successful year since we've opened up across the board on every level. Now, there's still, the need for us to continue to do some fundraising this year. We're going to put another down payment on the building at the end of this year. And not only are the shows helping us to make that number a little more palatable, but at the end of the day, we really do still need people to go to 5pointsmusic.com, check out our donate button, check out the programs that operate here. People think about this at the music venue, but if you've listened to the things we talked about today, if you've experienced any of our programs outside of these shows, you will realize that it's so much more than just a music venue. And the support that we get here it impacts people throughout the region. We take these programs here, whether it's our accessibility programs, our hearing loss advocacy efforts, our music therapy programs, they start in the sanctuary, which is the reason we need to buy this building. Without this building, my capacity to research, develop, and house these programs wouldn't exist as it currently does. And I need as much support. It doesn't have to be, you can write this thing with one check and make it real easy on it, but at the end of the day, $5, $15, go online. If you can do $5 a month, we have monthly donations that you can start just $5 a month. 5 Point special. It's like a cup of coffee. If you can find a way to support us and what we do, it would mean the world to me. Because I have been blessed with the fortune of perspective and the luck of working with some of the most amazing people from all different sides of our business and organization. And it meant the world to me to have Marshall here, not only last night playing on the stage, but when I talked to you about bringing him in today and he could make it work, he is worthy of his own singular praise in and of itself, but he is he is not just the only one. If I could do this, we'd have 100 shows of people that could have just as compelling of a story and equally worthy of praise and time and thought. And the fact of the matter is,
guys in here that could
this whole thing here that we built.
Well, you keep lining them up, and we'll keep knocking them down. As many
this
people
whole
as you
thing
want to
we
tell their
built.
story.
You know, when Tyler, I think he just texted me about this. Maybe, no, he called me. He's like, yeah, I want you to do this podcast. And I thought he needed me to record it. And all. He's like, no.
Another one.
Like, no, man, these guys, they're going to come. We're going to talk about you and talk about what we do here. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. It makes me a little nervous because I'm, always behind the scenes usually, or if I am doing something, I'm kind of hidden behind my music and songs and stuff. So it's awesome, and thank you for all the praise, Tyler, man.
Love you very much.
Last night was awesome, and I hope you guys can catch my band Virginia Electric sometime. Or
we would love to.
Or I hope I'm mixing a show in here, and
we'll be in and out quite
give you a
bit.
good experience.
We'll always crash the party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have the party to crash.
There we go.
But thank you guys so much for indulging us and coming back here and sharing and what you do, and just having people that can help narrate a story from different perspectives like yourselves and hit the masses and in the smaller pockets.
Hit that
It's so
website
important.
again, which is the engaging website you want people to get
It
on.
is
and support.
5pointsmusic.com. That's 5 with the number 5, pointsmusic.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. There are so many things we do here. We've got all types of amazing ways to support us. We have private events. You can come in here and come to our fundraising events, golf tournament, dinners. We do things throughout the region, and it's not just about these 4 walls, but these 4 walls are the intrinsic starting point for how we have grown and have given us the capacity to develop programs worthy of growing. And so go to 5pointsmusic.com, read all about our programs, check out our concerts, turn to the people in your life, realize that there is no promise or guarantee beyond anything other than right now. In this space, we remind ourselves of the value of chasing the little moments in each day that we hold on to remind ourselves while we wake up tomorrow and put one foot in front of the next. This morning we woke up and we've reminded ourselves of the little things that worth chasing. It's the years that Marshall and I have worked together. Sometimes we just don't have enough time to talk. And to be able to share in an hour and a half of just talking with somebody, not working. That's a little moment that I won't ever forget, and I appreciate you guys giving me that opportunity today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all, and we'll come over here as often as you'll have us, because not only do we enjoy it, but we believe in this place as well, and we believe in what y'all are doing over here, and we want to support as much as we can, and we do. We talk about this place all the time on our shows, and we're always trying to reference people to come over here. We got people coming over here tonight for the first time that I'm really excited about introducing Tyler to, because they're big Fish fans, and they've got a lot of influence in other places that we can really start tying things together. So this show, I think we're going to put out this show first. The later show with Colby, we might put out in a couple of weeks and split them up. So if you want to hear that one, you need to go to patreon.com/getontap. When you go subscribe to us over there, the $3 a month minimum, like he said, a cup of coffee, if you got $10 a month, cut one, Starbucks visit out, give $5 to Tyler, give $5 to us. We take that money, we put it to equipment, gas money to come over here. My sweet tea, for the love of God, I got to have that. You know what I mean? Like
your sweet cold tea.
Absolutely. Billy. Travel costs, come over here. We're going to eat dinner. The man of the hour just walked in the room. So go and subscribe at patreon.com/getontap. That's where you'll be able to catch all of our stuff, all of our shows early. We have after shows a lot of the times that subscribers can only listen to. So we talk conspiracies in the last show, the last 45 minutes or so, subscribers only. Sometimes it gets spicy, it gets to be a lot of fun. So, As far as everything else, Rocky Mountain Smokehouse, Rocky Mountain Burger Company, our buddies at You Are the Power, and Being a Libertarian, who will be here later tonight for his first visit. We thank y'all so very much. We're going to get to Colby Helms next, and thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Marshall. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Billy.
Thank
Love
you.
guys.
Hey, thank you. Great success last year. Keep it going. Keep it
On
going.
it, baby. On it.
I'm delighted that it,
Don't forget that website, baby.
Get it on there.
5pointmusic.com. Thank you guys again. Man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
right on.
That was fun.
He didn't signal while changing lanes. They pulled him over, found her cocaine. She said, I love you. Yes, I love you forevermore. If you tell that policeman that that cocaine load is yours. He spent time locked up. She ran around. Everyone knew it. Small country town. While he lay rotten, Lord, she was blowing on his door. And the day they released him, well, he had nowhere to go. Lord, and his ashes to ashes, and you know it's dust to dust. Just another low down woman that a man can't trust. Day they released him, no one was there. Had she forgotten? Did she still care? He called up her mama, Lord, and these words he heard her cry. Lord, that no good daughter of mine spend all your money on cocaine, overdosed and died. Lord, it's ashes to ashes, and you know it's dust to dust. Just another low down woman that a man can't trust. the spring one sunny day. My good gal left me and she went away. Now she's gone, I don't worry, because I'm sitting on top of the world.